The 80th call Elias Vance's in-laws, Frank and Eleanor Wallace, and his sister-in-law, Chloe, died in a horrific car crash. Elias called his forensic pathologist wife, Lena. After the 80th attempt, she finally answered, "It's Julian's birthday. I'm just spending time with him. What's your problem? Can you stop being so petty and jealous?" Elias told her that her parents and sister had died and that she needed to come immediately to handle the aftermath. She scoffed. "Why should I care if your whole family died?" Not only did she refuse to deal with the arrangements, but she later used her authority as a medical examiner to give false testimony in court for Julian Hayes, her high school sweetheart, who had run them over. It was only when Elias filed for divorce that her anger flared. "Elias Vance, so what if a few people in your family died?" "Julian didn't mean it," she spat. "Besides, it's your parents and sister who weren't watching the road. It's their own fault. You're being so pushy, demanding a divorce now. I really misjudged you." Watching the rage distort her face, Elias finally understood. She had no idea. All along, the ones who died were her family. One, Frank, Eleanor, and Chloe were struck with such force that they were flung several yards away. The next second, flames erupted, and the sound of the car exploding pierced Elias's eardrums. He froze on the spot, cold dread shooting through his limbs, taking a long moment to process the horror. Even the fingers reaching for his phone to call 911 were trembling. After a moment of fragile calm, he rapidly dialed Lena. She didn't pick up. It was only on the 80th call that the connection went through. Before he could speak, Lena's irritated voice cut him off. "Didn't I tell you not to bother me today? This is Julian's first birthday back in the States. I just wanted to enjoy it with him. Can you stop trying to ruin things?" Hearing Julian Hayes' name, Elias instinctively clenched his fist. He looked back at his in-laws lying in a pool of blood behind him, swallowing the torrent of accusations he wanted to unleash. His voice was urgent and shaky. "Your parents and Chloe were in a severe car accident. They're being rushed to the ER now. You need to come quickly. I'll send you the address." Before he could finish, Lena laughed, a cold, indifferent sound. "Why does your family's car crash concern me? I'm not their daughter. Whether they live or die, it's not my duty to look after them. Don't bother me over something so trivial." The line clicked dead, the abrasive dial tone catching in Elias's chest. For the first time, Lena felt utterly alien. The arriving officers, seeing his shock and distress, patted his shoulder and urged him to follow the ambulance to the hospital. Watching Frank and his family loaded onto stretchers, Elias's hand still trembled, gripped by the terror of what he'd witnessed. Just minutes before the collision, Frank had mentioned being thirsty, and Elias had stepped out of the car to grab waters at a nearby 7-11. He returned only to see the family struck and thrown 15 feet, all of them mutilated beyond recognition. He didn't know if he should feel relief for his own narrow escape or crushing grief over what had happened to the Wallaces. As he tried to recall the specifics of the crash, his phone buzzed with a $300 purchase alert. It was from the high-end men's designer boutique, where he usually bought his ties. If Lena was shopping there, it certainly wasn't for him. She rarely spared him a glance these days. This morning, she had spent hours applying meticulous makeup and put on a designer dress she normally wouldn't dare wear, all to celebrate Julian's homecoming birthday. She had never shown him such effort, not even when they were dating. Instead, she'd often mocked him. "How many years have we been married? Just seeing your face every day is annoying enough. Makeup is a waste of time." A second purchase alert immediately followed, this time from the upscale restaurant where he and Lena occasionally ate. Tentatively, he called her again, but her phone was now off. He could only see her recent Instagram post. "Celebrating my love's birthday. Even the cake tastes sweeter." Seeing the intimate photo of Lena feeding Julian cake, rage instantly consumed him. Just then, the surgery lights went off. The doctor stepped out and shook his head gravely. "I'm sorry for your loss." Elias's heart sank to the floor. Even though he had braced himself, they were still the family he had lived with for years. It was impossible not to feel the pain. He glanced at his phone again. Their daughter was still celebrating and laughing. He let out a cold laugh and contacted the bank to freeze all of Lena's credit cards. 2. After giving his statement, the police informed him that they had recovered surveillance footage of the accident. He followed the patrol car back to the precinct. When he saw the video, his eyes widened instinctively. He frantically rewound the footage a few seconds, freezing the frame on the vehicle that caused the crash. Even through the blurry image, he recognized it. It was Julian Hayes, who had just returned to the country. In that moment, the emotions he had suppressed erupted. He felt like a complete fool. The man who had killed Lena's entire family was her first love. Elias laughed bitterly. He wondered if Lena would still be in the mood to celebrate her ex's birthday once she knew the truth. The police, thinking he was emotionally collapsing from shock, patted his shoulder to console him. Elias wiped his face, his expression now perfectly composed. "I know this person. Officer, I request an autopsy." His words came out quickly. To the police, he looked like a distraught son-in-law refusing to accept the death of his loved ones. The officers exchanged glances but didn't deny his request. As next of kin, he had the right to request a post-mortem examination. "Mr. Vance, we understand how you feel, but the surveillance footage is incomplete. We can't definitively conclude that Julian Hayes intended to kill them. We need to continue investigating this matter thoroughly. You can go ahead and proceed with the autopsy arrangements first." Elias nodded, agreeing to cooperate fully with the investigation. Leaving the precinct, he turned his phone back on, and Lena's calls instantly flooded in. When he finally answered, her voice was frigid. "You canceled my card? Elias Vance, are you serious? By what right do you freeze my account?" "By the right of it being my checking account." "Lena, do I need to remind you that you are spending my money?" Lena fell silent instantly. When she spoke again, her tone softened slightly. "We are married. Why the separation of yours and mine? It's Julian's birthday today. I haven't seen him in so long, and I had to let him pay for everything at the end. Do you know how embarrassed I was?" She prattled on, increasing his irritation. He finally snapped, unable to bear it any longer. "Are you done?" She hadn't expected him to raise his voice so suddenly and pause for a second. "Elias, are you yelling at me?" Her voice was laced with injury, and soon she began to sob. Lena had always been like this, a princess demanding attention. If anyone challenged her, she dissolved into tears. In the past, the moment Lena put on this act, Elias would rush to comfort her, showering her with expensive gifts and designer bags. But now, the thought of her celebrating with the murderer of her family made him feel like his genuine affection had been ground into the dirt, utterly worthless. "Your parents and sister are dead. Remember to come back for the funeral arrangements." He delivered the notification coldly. He was stunned by her reply. "People die eventually. Dying together means they're reunited in heaven, I suppose. Just handle the services yourself. I have a lot of autopsies scheduled right now." She hung up immediately after saying that. Elias slowly widened his eyes, realizing she still seemed unaware that her parents were dead. He pressed his lips together and called the detective again. "I have one final request. Can I specify which forensic pathologist handles the autopsy? Just as my last request." 3. After leaving the police station, Elias returned home and instructed his lawyer to draft divorce papers. He had just mailed the papers when Lena, the woman who claimed to have so many bodies to cut, unexpectedly came home early. She stormed through the door, grabbed a water glass off the counter, and hurled it at him. The glass shattered against the wall. Her chest heaved violently as she pointed at his face and screamed, "Elias Vance, have you no shame? Julian didn't mean to hurt your family. You can't take out your grief and anger on an innocent person." "Julian told you?" Lena sneered. "I just finished his birthday party, and then he was immediately called in by the police. On the way to the precinct, he explained everything that happened. It was an accident. He was just rushing to see me. Besides, if your old parents hadn't been walking where they shouldn't, how would they have gotten hit, dragging your sister down with them?" Saying this, she noticed the strange expression on his face and slightly softened her tone. "Elias, don't be too sad. What's done is done. Just let it go. Don't blow this up and make it messy. Julian and I agreed he'll pay you $50,000. Just settle it privately." Elias was genuinely amused. His eyes locked on Lena's. "My parents and sister's lives are worth $50,000? $10,000 each." Hearing this, Lena's face darkened again. She shoved him, her voice low and laced with a warning. "Don't push your luck. $50,000 is a lot of money. Your parents were old. You would have had to care for them constantly. Now that they're gone, it saves you a lot of trouble. Getting $50,000 is basically free money." Lena's attitude made it clear that she would stand by Julian no matter what. She would believe every word he said. Elias felt a sharp pang of pain in his chest, yet he smiled at Lena. "I believe the law will prove everything." Seeing his firm stance, Lena bit her lip and scoffed dismissively. "The morgue confession for no good deed goes unpunished. Don't come crying to me when you lose the case." Slam! Lena wrenched the door shut behind her. Lena's smug confidence, implying she was sure he would lose the lawsuit, baffled Elias. It wasn't until the trial began that he understood the source of her certainty. The day of the trial, the courthouse was solemn, packed with grim-faced attendees. In court, Elias didn't hesitate to present the dashcam footage showing Julian hitting the three victims. Facing the judge's inquiry, Julian stammered, I. Seeing Julian stumble, Lena stepped forward immediately to testify. As a forensic pathologist, I can provide evidence proving that the three individuals died from pre-existing medical conditions, not from external force or the car accident. A single piece of blurry surveillance footage proves nothing. Either present compelling, undeniable evidence, or this is simply defamation. Lena declared with total confidence. She then presented her autopsy report. She had genuinely gone to extraordinary lengths and employed every tactic available to help Julian walk free. Seeing Elias remain silent, a glint of mockery and triumph flashed in Lena's eyes. I told you to settle this privately. What good is the flimsy evidence you have? Now you've made a fool of yourself for everyone to see. Standing beside her, Julian offered hollow comfort. Don't get too mad, Nan. Don't let this spoil your marriage. He then turned to Elias. Elias, I owe you an apology. Regarding your parents, I truly didn't mean it. Nan said 50,000 would solve it, but personally, I feel that's not enough. Julian apologized openly in court, seeking a settlement. Elias feigned indifference. It's fine. I've accepted it. I'll send you my account number. Just wire the money there. I don't need much. 100,000 should do it. After all, my parents' and sister's lives are worth at least 20,000 each. They aren't that cheap. Lena was startled by Elias's sudden change of heart. Julian's expression soured upon hearing the demand for $100,000, but he eventually agreed. Elias smiled, satisfied as the $100,000 transfer confirmation arrived. He then addressed Lena. I have the divorce papers ready. The county clerk's office is still open. Let's go get divorced. Lena stared, then snatched the documents. She sneered. You want to divorce me over this small thing? You're not much of a man, Elias. She threw the papers to the floor and stomped on them several times, then grabbed Julian's arm and walked out without looking back. Before leaving, she spoke slowly. Just be happy you got the money. Your parents' and sister's lives were only worth that much anyway. Elias raised an eyebrow, but didn't correct her. She still believed his family had died. However, since we were married, shouldn't you at least see your parents and sister one last time as their daughter-in-law? Consider me sending off the Wallaces. You're pathetic, Lena spat. Yet she followed him to the morgue. She'd already performed autopsies on these three disfigured bodies multiple times. There was nothing left to see. 5. Upon entering the morgue, Lena's face twisted with impatience. Elias, however, pulled out 3 death certificates, speaking with feigned sorrow. Mom, Dad, Chloe, Lena is here to see you. Seeing the certificates in his hand, Lena froze instantly. Her eyes bulged, filling with blood vessels. Lena seemed unable to believe it, rubbing her eyes repeatedly. She snatched the certificates from Elias's hand, her pupils dilated wide. Elias silently observed her stupefied reaction. Even if he had told her the truth earlier, she wouldn't have believed him. It was better to present the death certificates and let her see the truth for herself. Lena stumbled back a few steps, her body pressed tight against the wall, her eyes shaking uncontrollably. How is this possible? These 3 bodies. Aren't they your parents and sister? She whispered, before instantly lunging forward, grabbing Elias's collar and shouting. Why are my parents and sister here? Didn't your parents and sister die? Lena tried to take a deep breath to calm herself, but her gaze swept over the 3 cold corpses, and her vision swam. She collapsed onto the floor. This bewildered Lena's colleagues. Autopsies require family consent. Didn't you get the notice? One asked. We all assumed you had adjusted your mindset, which is why you agreed to personally dissect your family, thinking it was a final farewell. Hearing her colleague's reminder, Lena suddenly recalled something. She frantically pulled out her phone, her trembling fingers scrolling through her text messages, but found nothing. I remember. I sent you the message. Too bad you never bothered to read them, Elias said quietly, glancing at the bodies of the Wallaces. In fact, Chloe had died instantly upon impact, her brain matter scattered. Eleanor stopped breathing on the way to the hospital, and Frank died on the operating table from massive trauma. The entire family had suffered a horrific end. Lena sat on the floor, her eyes glazed with confusion and despair, her lips trembling nonstop. I didn't know it was my parents and Chloe. Her speech was fragmented. Seeing her state, the colleagues tried to usher her out. But Lena was nearly hysterical, crawling on all fours toward the bodies, kneeling on the floor, and weeping uncontrollably. Mom, Dad, Chloe, wake up. I didn't know it was you. How could you leave me alone? It's fake, all fake. Lena tried desperately to rationalize, turning sharply to Elias, her eyes bloodshot. Elias Vance, you must have paid someone to tamper with my parents' bodies and stage this performance. You're all lying to me. She completely broke down, swinging a scalpel wildly in the air. Elias faced her impassively. Lena, I know it's hard to accept your family's death, and that you even gave false testimony for Julian. When I called you to tell you what happened, you kept avoiding it. Now, you need to wake up. Your parents and sister are truly dead. You bit down hard on that last sentence. Lena's face went white, as if all her strength had abandoned her. 6. Her colleagues helped her leave, while Elias remained to deal with the Wallace's bodies. He recalled how she had repeatedly hung up on him, believing it was his family who had died and that he deserved to suffer. She allowed Julian to insult 3 human lives with a pathetic cash offer. Do you remember what you said to me in court? Lena hung her head, her expression unreadable, but her body trembled when she heard the question. You said that since 3 people died at once, the cremation fees would probably be discounted, and what was there to be dissatisfied about since they were reunited in heaven? Are you satisfied now? Elias smiled coldly. Seeing his expression, Lena began to sob, bordering on fainting. She lunged at him, her hands trembling as she grabbed his collar, tears streaming down her face. Elias, you did this on purpose. You knew it was my parents, but you deliberately didn't tell me. You wanted to see me like this. You planned this revenge. He looked directly into her eyes with calm detachment. Let's be clear. When they were hit, I called you immediately. What were you busy doing then? You told me to handle it myself, because you had to celebrate Julian's birthday, and I shouldn't disturb you. As his words sank in, Lena paused, realizing belatedly that she had indeed said those things. Her voice choked, almost unable to speak, and she started violently smashing everything around her, trying to vent her hysteria. You did this on purpose. You wanted revenge by making me perform the autopsy on my own parents. Lena tried to shift all the blame onto him, but Elias wasn't about to carry that weight. Lena, they were killed right in front of me. They were thrown over 30 feet, blood and brain matter everywhere. Do you know how horrifying that scene was? I didn't want them to die without justice. And you, their daughter, helped the killer provide false testimony. He didn't lower his voice, causing others in the hallway to look over, sensing a major drama unfolding. Lena's eyes were bloodshot. It took a long time for a sliver of clarity to return. She immediately grabbed her phone and called Julian. As soon as he answered, Julian spoke in an overly affectionate tone. What's up, missing me already? The nauseating affectation made Lena's face twist. She demanded in a rasping voice. Did you delete my text messages? You told me you were scared that you hit Elias's family, maybe killing them, and I protected you by giving false testimony. Do you have any idea that if this gets investigated, my career will be ruined? But why did you lie to me? You hit my parents and sister. She was practically screaming the last words. Lena, who was usually so concerned about her image, now sounded like a common street fighter. On the other end, Julian was silent for a moment before laughing lightly, attempting to soothe her. Man, you misunderstand me. You must have deleted the text yourself. I truly thought they were Elias's family at the time, given how close they were to him. I never expected. Please accept my condolences. Regardless, life has to go on, right? You argued so fiercely for me in court. Don't let all that effort go to waste now. It was only then that Elias realized Julian had likely intended to kill the Wallaces all along. The fact that he could speak so calmly made him an extremely dangerous individual. Lena only believed Julian had hit Elias's family because Julian had continuously confused the facts and relayed false information. Julian hung up, and Lena stared blankly at her phone. Finalizing the deal 7. The bodies could not remain in the morgue for too long, so Elias authorized the Wallace's cremation. Watching her parents and sister being wheeled out, Lena whispered, So, you've all abandoned me, haven't you? Elias glanced at her, feeling little sympathy. Ultimately, if she hadn't clung to her first love, she wouldn't be suffering this tragedy now. The damage was done. She had no choice but to accept the fact that her family had been wiped out. After the cremation, Lena took the urns home. People who were once physically present in her life were now reduced to small boxes of ashes. Facing this scene, Elias felt a sense of melancholy. 8. The date for the second hearing was set for 1 month later. Even though the settlement money was paid, the legal process had to continue. Before that, Elias moved out of their marital home and rented an apartment across town. The next time he saw Lena was outside the courthouse entrance. In the weeks since they last met, she had become noticeably thinner. Her leather coat hung loosely on her frame. By contrast, Julian Hayes beside her looked cheerful and energized. Long time no see, Elias. I hope we can manage this business today. Julian smiled widely, extending his hand to shake Elias's. He clearly felt confident about the second hearing, especially since the first round had produced no effective evidence that he had deliberately killed the Wallaces. You look confident, Elias said, ignoring the outstretched hand. Julian wasn't embarrassed. It was all a misunderstanding. Once it's cleared up, everything will be fine. I've already spoken with Nan. She'll continue to testify for me. As long as you accept the settlement, there shouldn't be any trouble. Julian smugly draped his arm over Lena's shoulder. Lena, whose name had been mentioned, remained completely silent. Elias moved his gaze away, saying nothing more. During the hearing, Julian's defense attorney worked hard, finding every loophole to clear him. But Lena, as the key witness, remained completely mute. This made Julian nervous. Nan, say something? It was then Elias stepped forward. He presented the evidence of Julian's settlement offer and the corresponding bank transfer record. Seeing the evidence, Julian scoffed. That's not evidence of guilt. At most, it proves you accepted a resolution. But you're mistaken. The people you hit were not my parents. They were the parents of your witness. Even as her husband, I had no legal standing to accept that resolution on her family's behalf. Julian's face darkened. He stared intently at Lena, urging her to speak. Elias had expected Lena to remain stubbornly devoted, but he was astonished when she spoke. She confessed to Julian's hit and run and the fact that she had given false testimony for him. Lena, are you insane? Aren't you worried about destroying your entire career by saying this? Julian roared, his veins bulging. He had never expected her to expose everything. Lena, wipe the tear away. I can lose my career. I can go to jail. But I can't let my parents and sister die unjustly while the murderer walks free. Elias pursed his lips and finally presented the conclusive evidence provided by the police. I charged Julian Hayes with felony vehicular homicide and murder. Hit and run was one thing. Murder was another entirely. The turn of events completely panicked Julian. He tried to defend himself, but the evidence accumulated by the police over the preceding weeks rendered him speechless. Due to the overwhelming proof, Julian Hayes was convicted of hit and run and deliberate homicide and would spend the rest of his life in prison. As for Lena, though she had committed perjury, she stepped forward voluntarily and cooperated fully. Coupled with testimony from her colleagues stating that she had developed severe depression following the incident, she avoided prosecution for the perjury charge. Before Julian was led away, Lena tearfully demanded to know why he had killed her parents. Julian merely gave a mocking smile. If your parents hadn't blocked us, we would have been together years ago. How could I not hate them? It was for this petty reason that Julian took 3 lives. 9. After leaving the courthouse, Lena followed closely behind Elias. She clenched her hands so tightly her nails dug into her palms. She hurried up to him, hesitating before finally managing to say, I'm sorry. Elias raised an eyebrow, declining the apology. Ultimately, her losses were self-inflicted consequences. She had maintained contact with Julian both before and after their marriage. Her parents despised Julian, believing he was responsible for their daughter's prolonged distress. Elias himself had endured Lena's behavior for years, retreating in order to preserve the fragile peace of their marriage, all because he loved her. Seeing his lack of response, Lena lowered her head even further. I know you won't forgive me, but when I said those terrible, hateful things to you, there was a reason. She seemed about to explain, but abruptly stopped. Elias no longer cared what she wanted to tell him. If that's all, please sign the divorce papers. He pulled out the documents he had prepared long ago. He had expected Lena's temper to result in a messy, protracted divorce. He was surprised by her calm compliance. Throughout their relationship, from their first meeting to dating to marriage, Elias had truly cared for Lena. His repeated compromises regarding Julian were purely because he loved her. Lena hesitated for a long time before signing her name with great difficulty. She seemed to lose all her strength, her already slightly slumped posture worsening. Lena suddenly smiled, looking up. I don't expect your forgiveness. But after the divorce, can we still be friends? I have no family left. Her eyes welled up, and the tears immediately spilled down her cheeks. Her fingers weakly clutched the edge of her coat. Losing her family had made Lena incredibly fragile. Let's not. We ended things so badly. There's no need to stay friends. Signing these papers calmly is the best dignity we can offer each other now. Lena's body shook slightly, and she didn't argue against his final statement. During the asset division, Lena did not demand the house he had bought for them. A strained smile pulled at her lips. I'll move back to my parents' house. This house was hard-earned by you. You've had a difficult few years. If I live in their old house, it will be like they are still alive and with me. Elias had moved out precisely because he thought Lena would fight for the house. After meeting her, he had decided she was the one. To marry her, he had worked relentlessly before the wedding to build up his assets. He used the money to buy the ocean view house in the suburb she wanted. He remained silent for a moment, not refusing the offer. It seemed Lena was finally feeling guilt for her past actions, hence her lack of contention over the assets. Remember to collect the divorce certificate after the waiting period is over. Since her family's death, Elias had not shown Lena any warmth. Every time she heard his indifferent, distant tone, her eyes would redden. After all, he had never been so cold to her before. She wiped the tears from her eyes and nodded slowly, her voice choked. Don't worry. Whatever you want, I'll comply. Lena moved back to her parents' old house. Although the marital home was still in Elias's name, he had no intention of living there again. If he was going to say goodbye to the past, he would do so completely. Aftermath, he sold the house and bought a larger one closer to his company. Lena had always been a classic mama's girl, extremely dependent on her family. To accommodate her, he had bought the marital home near her parents' place, making it easy for her to visit. But this meant his commute was grueling. He had to wake up before dawn every day to drive to the city, where he'd hit the worst of the rush hour traffic. For years, he averaged less than 5 hours of sleep. The combination of sleep deprivation and excessive fatigue had caused him numerous health issues. Reflecting on it, he realized he had sacrificed his entire self for Lena. His friends were shocked and saddened when they heard the full story of Lena and her family. Honestly, before Julian came back, your relationship seemed pretty good, right? We were all jealous of you too. I can't believe you actually divorced. It's all Julian's fault in the end. Elias simply pressed his lips together, offering no reply. It wasn't Julian's fault entirely. Lena had always loved Julian. For years, Elias had just been pretending that she loved him back. But now that they were divorced, he could finally start a new life, unburdened by Lena. Weeks later, just when he expected to smoothly obtain the divorce certificate, Lena reappeared. She became obsessed, following him everywhere daily. He learned from her former colleagues that Lena had resigned and would never return to forensic pathology. He suspected the autopsy of her own parents had left Lena psychologically damaged. He couldn't deny it. Forcing Lena to perform the autopsy was his ultimate act of revenge. He knew she wouldn't believe his words. Her eyes were only for Julian. Once her golden boy returned, Elias, the fallback choice, was utterly irrelevant. It started raining heavily. Lena was still standing downstairs outside his building. When he returned from work, she cried and rushed straight into his arms, babbling. Honey, where have you been? I couldn't find you at home. Mom, Dad, and Chloe aren't there. The whole house is empty, and I'm so scared. Elias was utterly bewildered. Just weeks ago, after signing the divorce papers, she had vowed they would be strangers. Now, she was acting completely insane. He frowned, immediately pushing her away. Lena, I advise you not to regret this. The 3-day cooling-off period is almost over. We can get the divorce certificate soon. If you don't want to fight another lawsuit, stop harassing me. As soon as he finished speaking, Lena stared at him in disbelief. She stood stunned for a long moment before finally asking, puzzled, Divorce? Why would you divorce me? Did you fall for someone else? Elias rubbed his temples, desperate to cut all ties with her. Stop pretending, okay? We agreed to stay out of each other's lives. Lena suddenly burst into loud sobs, throwing herself onto the ground and rolling hysterically in the rain, causing passers-by to stop and stare. Elias's face darkened as he tried to figure out how to get rid of her. Just then, he received a phone call from the police. They had something concerning Lena they needed to tell him. Since he hadn't yet received the final divorce certificate, he was legally still her husband. Through the police, Elias learned the truth. Lena had completely lost her mind. He had noticed something was off when she first saw the bodies of her parents and sister. Julian's ultimate betrayal and confession had pushed her past the breaking point, resulting in severe psychological trauma and memory fragmentation. A neighbor had called the police after seeing her walking around outside, clutching the urns and scaring children. After repeated disturbances, the neighbors reported her. She was no longer living in her parents' old house, but was staying at a nearby psychiatric facility. Somehow, she had managed to escape today. Lena's memory was fluid, sometimes clear, sometimes hazy. After calming down, her eyes regained clarity. Seeing Elias, tears immediately welled up. I'm sorry, Elias. I don't know why I was out there. I know you don't want to see me, but I miss you. I'm sick, Elias. She seemed afraid he wouldn't believe her and pulled a medical report from her bag. Her colleague had testified in court that Lena's illness was genuine. Lena sniffled, offering a strained smile. Julian lied to me. You showed me a lot of photos, claiming you were cheating, which is why I was so cold to you. I did love you, and I was jealous. When you told me about the car crash, I instantly assumed it was your family who died, and I said those horrible things for revenge. I never thought that, in the end, it was my parents who were killed, and the driver was Julian. She took a deep breath and grasped his hands. He could feel her body shaking. For a brief moment, his heart was heavy with sorrow. Don't worry. We'll get the divorce certificate 3 days from now. I won't cause you any trouble. On the day they finalized the divorce, Lena was accompanied by psychiatric nurses, lest she suffer another episode. She wore a white sundress, a birthday gift Elias had once given her, and her face was flawlessly made up. They entered the county clerk's office together. Lena remained silent throughout the process, following the steps, signing the documents, and accepting the official stamp. Finally, they each held a red booklet. Unlike the marriage license, this one was stamped with the words, Divorce Decree. It meant their lives would no longer intersect. The first thing Lena said to him was, Elias, do I look pretty? He vaguely remembered her asking him the exact same question, with the same smile, when she first tried on that dress. His throat felt dry, and he couldn't speak. She didn't wait for his reply. The nurses gently led her away. He learned from them that Lena's moments of lucidity were becoming rarer, and her suicidal tendencies were increasing. Elias took one last look at Lena, then turned and walked away. Soon after the divorce, he was promoted and was quickly transferred to a different city. Returning would be difficult. Before boarding his flight, his friends came to see him off, bringing him 2 pieces of news. Julian Hayes had committed suicide in prison. Rumor had it he'd developed severe paranoia, constantly screaming that people were coming to kill him, seeking vengeance. Elias scoffed. It was karma. The second piece of news concerned Lena. She died too, apparently, at the psychiatric hospital. If you weren't leaving today, you could make her funeral. Elias was silent for a moment, then shook his head. No. He didn't ask how she died. He only felt a slight sense of regret. Since he was starting a new life, he couldn't afford to linger on the past. The end.